Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy. The Breeders' Academy proudly presents Bred to Perfection with Kenny Troiano, a show for serious breeders.
Whether you are looking to create a new strain or simply improve an old one, you have come to the right place.
Daddy, I want more chickens.
Oh, boy.
Now, here's your host, Kenny Troiano.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bred to Perfection. My name is Kenny Troiano, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to helping you become a better breeder and taking your strain to the next level. That's right, my friends. It doesn't matter if you are brand new to breeding or you've been breeding for many years. There is something all of us can do to improve our fowl for future generations.
Don't you worry. They say there's nothing to heredity anyway.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred to Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders' Academy, and I'm here with my wife Nancy and my co-host Frank Bradley. What's going on, guys?
I was just looking, guys. We're that close to 150. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I was talking to Nancy about that today. We're almost to 200 on the podcast. So we've done over 300 episodes altogether.
It went fast.
And it's not even counting all the members' videos, all the Masters Class videos, all the Q&As we've done for the members. It might be up there near, I have to count them someday.
I'd say 500.
Maybe 400.
All the videos?
Oh,
all
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
We've done a lot.
I'm not talking about just the videos we've done. I'm talking about the videos, podcasts, and everything.
Yeah, it's up there. But that's not even counting all the guest appearances I've done on other shows, too. So...
Doesn't seem that long.
No, it doesn't. Matter of fact, Nancy and I were talking about this today. How long ago did we start this show? Has it
4
been
years ago?
4 years ago. That's what I told
Has
her.
it really? Oh, gosh.
4 years. Yeah, actually, I've got it written down to where I can remember when we started it. Plus, it comes up on memories on Facebook, too, so that keeps me informed. But the thing about it is the first maybe 8 or 10, those can just go away forever as far as I'm concerned. I never want to watch those things again.
Oh, I don't blame you. I don't blame you
God,
at all.
right.
Matter of fact, I was curious.
Lord.
I saw a new show, and I'm not trying to criticize them, but it's a new show, and they were rough. And I was like, I know that feeling. Our first few shows were terrible. So I'm thinking maybe they'll get in their stride, they'll do better and change things and improve things as they go, because they were really raw. So I watched our first show, which was awful. We've gotten 100 times better. And I actually listened to the one Nancy and I did for the first Bred to Perfection podcast. Not the live, but the podcast.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, I listened to a few of them. And Nancy was great. Nancy sounded great. She was comfortable. She had all kinds of energy, a lot of personality. And I sounded like I was sound asleep. Nothing like we are now.
I do remember that. You were so nervous. I'm used to talking to people, so it's no big deal to me.
I don't know if I was
It's
nervous
fun.
exactly. I've stood in front of people and I've done seminars. I was comfortable with that. But to sit in front of a microphone and act like you're into it and try to remember everything you got to say, and then Nancy's distracting you as you go. I'm going to blame a lot of this on Nancy, okay? And it was tough. Nancy was very comfortable with the whole thing, and I was just struggling with it. And I would say the first 10 or so episodes of the actual podcast were awful. So bad, I want to go back and redo all those because they're great information. Every time I tell someone I'm going to take those off there, leave it on. It shows you where you came from. I go, okay. Just don't start there. Start from the end and work your way down. Maybe you'll lose interest by the time you get to those.
That was me. As far as you saying you used to talk in front of people. At work, I was used to having meetings, getting up, talk in front of 40, 50 people. Didn't have no problem with it. I'd done it so much, it was just like breathing, taking a breath. But for some reason, when Kenny hit that record button and we went live, I fell apart. But we could do a recording on a masterclass video, and that's fine. But on the live shows, that's where I had the problem. I don't know. I can't explain it.
I know you say that all the time, and I think you did good. I think you sounded fine. What I will say is you're a lot different than you were then. You're a lot more comfortable, not more relaxed. But I actually think you did better than me on the first few shows, for sure.
If you say.
I thought you did.
I don't know.
I'll agree with Kenny. I'll totally agree with Kenny. But for all of you people out there in public land, go back and listen to those beginning shows because there's a lot of good nuggets in the beginning. And Kenny may disagree with me, but I feel like we put out a lot of good subject.
I would agree with you, Nancy, but I actually took those off. They're not there anymore. Because we did give out a lot of information at the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, so where is it?
Deliverance, that was bad.
It's in my computer.
Seriously? You really took it all off?
I took a few of them off, yeah.
I begged him to, Nancy.
They were too much. It was too much information.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. How should I say this, Kenny? We was a little immature on how to deliver certain topics, and we give out too much of the topic.
I'm mostly talking about the ones that Nancy and I did in the beginning.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
But you guys did.
As far as our live show, I did take off the first 30 or so. They're not available anymore.
Because some of those, you could use those for masterclass videos, actually. Some of them.
Yeah, maybe.
Kind of. Some of the information in them.
I remember that. I was like, did they say what I thought they said?
Buddy, I got a message from a new member. Matter of fact, I want to welcome all the new members. We've gotten a lot of new members the last couple weeks, and I'm really appreciating it. I do want to tell you guys, make sure you begin with the Start Here pages. There's a lot of information in there. Don't try to absorb it all at one time. If you need help, let me know. But there's a lot of good programs, courses. Start with the Start Here pages, work your way through, and then use the website as a reference. Then go and check out all the Masterclass videos, all the members roundtables, check out the Founders Program. And then once you get used to the website, get an idea how it all works, where everything's at. And then if you have any questions, start writing them down, and then we'll get together. And if we need a coaching call, we can do a coaching call. I do like to wait till you're in the website for a little while, because I know you're going to have a lot of questions, and it'd be good just to do it all at one time. Oh, I was going to say, is one of the new members, he really appreciated that we kind of gave him a push. I think he was holding back. He kind of mentioned how he was trying to re-engineer the website, trying to figure things out before he got in there. So he's kind of holding back. And then he finally got in, and he's glad he did, because when he got in there and looked around, he was, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. And I told Nancy, it's funny how so many people hold off thinking that they can figure it all out just from our shows and try to re-engineer something. And then the revelation that they get when they finally go on the website. So yeah, he was thanking us for doing that.
There's a lot of people that try to do that and have said, I just couldn't figure it out. I had to join.
See what we did? We give really good information from our shows. Obviously, we're not giving them what we call the secret.
Secrets.
Yeah, the secrets. And this is a good thing, is I think people hold back because they don't want to spend the money. But when they get in there, not only are they surprised, but you can tell that we exceed the website's bigger and better than I think they thought it was going to be.
I spend more money than that on an unscheduled visit to Tractor Supply. I spend 3 times that. That's nothing. And let me tell you something. When you're in chickens, the first tolerance, somebody said, how do I know if I make a good breeder or not? Is there ways to tell? I said, yep. Take a couple $100 bills out of your pocket, set it on fire, and if you don't sit there and cry, you're good to go.
Well, you know how we used to say,
as far as chickens.
You know how we used to say that the website's cheaper than a bag or two of feed or a trip for a family of 4 to go eat at McDonald's or something?
Yeah.
The prices have rise so much with feed and fast food that now it's cheaper than a family of 2. And it's cheaper than 1 bag of feed. So
2 bags anyway, because that's what I was getting ready to say. I can go just buy 2 bags of non-essential grains. I'm not talking pellets. I'm talking about wheat, barley, something like that. And right there's your membership fee right there, 2 bags of grain.
And the money we're going to save you, because trust me, when you go through the defects course and the confirmation course and some of the selection courses, what you're going to learn from that is you're going to go through your backyard. And trust me, you're going to cull some of those birds. That's going to save you money right there. I would guarantee that most of the birds you're raising, you're wasting money on feed. And then we can help you weed them down to the best ones so that you can start your strain.
Funny that you guys are talking about this because Santiam was in the chat room. He said, whenever I get asked what's the best way to get into these birds, whether it's domestic or gamefowl, he says the first thing you do is get your yard ready and your environment ready. And then I said, absolutely. Then you join the Breeders Academy so that you can learn to breed your chickens the right way.
Yeah. I had one today. He joined. I mean, he was talking back and forth, and I was getting him fixed up to where you could go in and join. And he said, I wanted to become a member and spend some time inside the Breeders' Academy even before I went and got my chickens. And I said, man, that's the best thing that you could actually do. Because this way it prepares you to when you do go by. And then after you get them, it prepares you to do what needs to be done with them. So I thought that was a great idea, him doing that before he even got the first cage, first chicken, or anything.
Yeah. I saw that conversation, actually. Okay, I wrote it down. I want to make sure I cover this right. We've done a recording, quite a lot of information with Brian Reeder on poultry genetics, color genetics, breeding, and improving the plumage color. We covered a lot of things. So right now I'm working on the whole series. It's going to turn out to be multiple episodes. There's just so much information and there's so many things I want to do with it. The members versions will be first. I'm going to start with the interview him and I did, which was a 5-hour talk. It was basically a phone conversation, and we covered so many topics. It wasn't meant to be a structured talk. It was just meant for him and I to get to know each other, figure out what we wanted to talk about, how we wanted to cover it. And we ended up talking about a lot of things. It was such good information. With his permission, I took the 5-hour talk, I edited it down to about 2.5 hours. So that's what I've been doing. And I'll be making that whole talk available to my members soon. I almost got it edited, which is the first edit. And that's going to be audio. And like I said, that's going to be for the members only. And then what I'm going to do, because we did cover so many different topics in that conversation, is I'm going to split those topics into separate episodes. And again, those will be audios, and we're going to have different versions. We're going to have a members version, and then we're going to have the public version. So the public's going to get a different version than the members. The members are basically going to get the whole thing. And then I may turn that one into a video once I get it done. And this will all be on the website for the members. Once I get it done, make it into a video, because we talked about a lot of things. And I think that if I pull it up on the screen as we're talking about it, you'll have a better understanding of what we talked about. So we'll do that. The second interview was 8 hours long. Brian Reeder, Nancy, and myself. And that was a structured talk. We knew exactly what we wanted to talk about. We knew what we wanted to cover. That's going to be 4 separate episodes. And those are going to be for the members only. Now, the final episode, that might be edited down so that some of that will be available to the public. But the first 3 episodes just going to be for the members. It will be released first as audio. And that will be on the website for the members. And then we'll be turning those audios into illustrated videos. Because as he was talking to us, he was providing the photos as he was talking, and he was basically using those photos to help describe what he was talking about. This is really good information. I can't wait to get it all done. And then we're going to create a number of programs with this information. And I might even pull out segments from those and make separate episodes. And some will be for the members, some will be for the public. And like I said, we'll be posting all this at different stages. So I don't want my members waiting, but I want to get it to them as fast as I can, but know that I'm going to keep on improving on it. It's going to start out as audio, it's going to turn into a video, there's going to start out as members versions, and then I'm going to pull off things for the public. So there'll be some things for the public as I finish them. I just don't want you to wait too long. And then once I get those done, I'm going to finish the standard for the American game on the website, and not only finish the standard, but I'm going to incorporate a lot of the information Brian provided us for the standard, so that not only you understand what the birds should look like, but how to breed them better. And then Brian's going to be coming on again to do other topics too. So we're going to go real deep into hybridization and domestication. We're going to be going really deep into the origins of the domestic chickens, which is going to include gamefowl. And then there's some things about genetics we're going to cover. And one of them I think you wanted to do a whole show on was autosomal pheomelanin. And I just want to make sure I get these all done before I move on, because this is just really good information. And then Frank and I will continue after that with the rest of the Founders Program, which we only have a couple things to do, really. We have a couple more videos to do, and then we'll tackle other topics. But I do want to get this done and get it on the website for the members.
I just want to say something really quick. Guys, if you haven't already, his books that he's written, they're both really good books. I suggest you go on Amazon and pick those up as soon as possible. Really good reads, very easy to understand.
Yeah, and I agree, especially for my members who are going to be seeing the whole thing. Using these books, let's say you're watching the videos and you're learning, I think the books are going to be a great companion to the videos we did, even to the audios we did, because we basically used his books as the outline. So that would be a good thing to do. Another thing, I was talking to Rick Coase. He's been on the show with us. As a matter of fact, he did a live episode, which I edited down to the podcast as well. So I think the episode for the live show would be episode 71. And the podcast is 136. And we talked about evolution and how the mechanisms of evolution are very similar to what we see with selective breeding, and how we can use the mechanisms of evolution to improve our breeding practices. So he came on and he talked to us about evolution. He's agreed to come on. I just got to finish up the outline that I've started, send it to him, see what he thinks, and get him back on, because I had so many people say how much they enjoyed that, which really helped because my members understand it. And I want the new members to understand it too, that evolution plays a big role in what we do. And if you look at the Founders Program and you look at the mechanisms of evolution, you can see why we teach it the way we do and show why it's so important. Because I just don't think the Founders Program would be where it is if it wasn't for what I learned about evolution. Like we always talk about, we want to stay as close to Mother Nature as possible, and this is one of the ways we do it. But let me say this, and then we'll move on. Obviously, he has this podcast, and that's what I follow mostly. But now he's doing a YouTube channel, and it's actually different than the podcasts. They're whole different shows. They're new shows. If you have any interest in this, which I hope you do, go to his YouTube channel, Evolution Talk, subscribe, start watching the videos. I think you're going to learn a lot. It's going to help you understand breeding even more. And if you're following me and you're following our shows and following the Breeders' Academy, you're going to understand why. You're going to be able to connect the dots. I joined. I'm supporting him too, as he has a Patreon page. And I encourage you, if you like the videos, to join his Patreon page. You're going to get a whole lot more information. It's going to be really good information. And I'd like to do everything I can to support Rick and what he does, because I think what he does is really important. And I hope he sticks around for a long time, because I just love the way he covers evolution. And it's entertaining and it's fun to listen to. He just does a really good job. So give it a chance. Go check it out. He just started it. It's very new. I don't know how often he's going to do it, but I would assume he's going to do it once a week. Check out the videos. If you like what he does, check out his podcasts. He also has a book. We promoted the book as well. Check out that. He also has an audio book. It's really good information. You're going to see how it relates to what we do too. And then again, hopefully you'll support him. Join his Patreon page so he can continue to do what he's doing.
Kenny, aren't you going to be on somebody's show?
Yeah. Joe was on our show last week. I've been on his show twice. He came on our show. I thought he was filling in for Frank because I didn't think Frank was going to make it. But Frank did. I'm glad he did, because we talked about how close chicken breeding is to dog breeding. I have a number of members, dog breeders in my Breeders' Academy, and they're finding the information we provide, and the Breeders' Academy is working out for them too. They're able to use a lot of that information. So we're really changing the way the dog breeders are thinking about breeding. I built the website for chicken breeders, but we've got all kinds of different animal breeders in there. I didn't plan on it, but it's working out really good. They love it. The information's working out for them. So anyways, I'm going to be on Joe's show. We're going to be talking about what kind of breeders are you? I know it's a dog show. I'm a chicken breeder. I think the information from this talk is going to help anyone who breeds.
The same thing that we talk about on this show every Friday night on the live show, the same thing that's going on within gamefowl breeding or chicken breeding is going on the same exact way in the dog world. The good breeders breed a certain way and close, and the others are just making mongrels. And it's pretty much the same thing that we discuss. They've got more in common with us than we ever know as far as dog breeding, chicken breeding. To the fact to where even the old wives' tales and superstitions are the same. So it's really crazy how close related they are.
Now, the Breeders' Academy was designed for chickens. But if you look at all the Dead Man books when it comes to breeding, whether it's cattle breeding, pig breeding, now I'm learning from dog breeding, is it, like Frank said, for the most part, it's the same. We have to adjust a couple things because you can't inbreed too much. But if they followed it, they'd get a better result than what they're getting. And everybody likes what we say. Even the dog breeders that are following our show, they like what we say. The only problem they have is they still feel that you need to add outside blood. And we show in the Founders Program, there's a way to get around that. And there's some safeguards that come into play in the Founders Program that prevent inbreeding depression. And it applies to chickens, it applies to gamefowl, it applies to dogs, cattle, pigs, you name it. You just got to trust the process. And so that's a hard one for some dog breeders because they've been doing it so long. Like Frank said, there are just some things that they're afraid to do. But I think if they trust the process, they'd be fine.
But once again, the one thing that I see in common with that is the good dog breeders breed the way me and Kenny breed. And same in the gamefowl world. The better breeders breed this way, even the dog breeders. Joe said it himself right at the end of the show. I asked him the question between inbreeding, and he said the good ones do.
Yeah.
So that shows you right there how important it is to do that. But like you said, Kenny, a lot of people just have a hysteria about it that they think get back. Don't want nothing to do with that. But if they'd only give it a try, they would see. They would actually see.
Yeah. I've talked to a number of dog breeders, and they say they do it. They breed like we breed. They just don't tell anybody they do it because they'd be criticized and crucified for it. So for my members, when we're done here, we're going to be going into the back end on the website. We're going to be talking with our members. We're going to be doing the members roundtable, and we're going to be talking about the consequences of genetic contamination. This is going to be a really good talk. We're going to be covering all kinds of things when it comes to genetic contamination, environmental contamination, health contamination, all that kind of stuff. So for my members, make sure to meet us there after this show. Make sure you join the Breeders Bulletin. There you're going to get free articles, free tips on breeding, free bonus material, which includes the ebooks on breeding. Just go to www.breedersacademy.com to subscribe.
We'll be right back after word from our sponsor. This show was brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl. As a member, we'll provide you with the roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. I urge you to check it out. You've got nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. You also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl.
I hope to see you there. So let's get started.
Okay, on with the show, finally. I knew this was going to be a little heavy in promotions. I just had a lot to talk about that I wanted to make sure I got out because we have so many different plans, so many different projects going on inside the Breeders Academy, and I wanted to let the members know what was going on. And like I said, got a lot of shows coming up. Frank, today we're going to be talking about creating a healthy environment for your fowl.
Very important. That's one leg of that stool.
So we're going to help you create a sound environment, which I think is a prerequisite for a successful breeding program. Hopefully give you some information you guys didn't think of. Maybe improve the way you run your farm, the way you take care of your chickens. So let's start with building brood pens that are safe and secure, Frank.
Yeah, how secure is secure? Some people, you're not going to have a lot of problem, but if you're in the country like me, even the insects eat chickens. You got to have well-built pens. But I tell you, I learned a lesson today talking about pens. I bought a bunch of those fold-up 39 by 39 pens with the doors on them. I'm never buying another one. I've already lost 2 birds from them, and I'm not using them anymore. The wells don't hold up on them. Even that, you get a lot of them that will run their head through the wire where the checks are so big. And I've had to go around with that plastic chicken wire just to keep them from sticking their heads out. So I don't think I'm going to fool with them anymore.
Hey, even if you haven't had seen any predators in your yard, all of a sudden you have chickens, safe bet you're going to start seeing animals in your yard that you didn't see before. So just be aware of that. Protect them against that.
Maybe before they used to pass on through, but now you've got food and they're going to stick around. They're going to go, whoa, wow, there's chickens here. I think I'm going to stick around over here.
The biggest problem I've seen to bring them in that way, though, is people will cull birds and leave them on the property overnight or leave them laying out. That's the worst thing you can do. If you have a chicken that you cull or it passes away, you remove it from that property, because I promise you there's millions of noses going to smell that dead chicken and they're going to come looking for a chicken dinner.
What's funny, though, is some animals, like possums, they are opportunists. If you leave them a hole big enough for them to get into, they're going to get in there. But they don't work that hard to actually get into the pens unless you leave them basically a hole big enough for them to get in. Skunks, Frank was here when him and I were walking in the yard one night, and we were just talking and walked over to a pen, and sure as shit, there was a skunk right in the middle of the pen eating an egg. And Frank started backing up like he was going to get sprayed. Going, what are you doing? Because you really have to instigate a fight with them for them to spray you sometimes.
Not in Kentucky. If you're within seeing distance, they'll let you have it. Because Kenny went forward, and I started backing up, and I was like, what's he doing? He's going to get down. Oh, they won't bother you. And I was like, okay. You know?
You have to startle them pretty good or threaten them. I told Frank, wait. Watch. And if you look at chain link, it's probably a hole about that big. And he walked right through it. So you can't really keep skunks out. But I like to keep the eggs high. So all my nest boxes are about eye level. And then my roost poles go right across at the same level.
I keep them out. My dog, one comes in, you're going to smell skunk for a long time.
So I had to change my pens a little bit to prevent the skunk from getting the eggs. That was a big thing. I've never seen a skunk here kill a chicken. Now, they might get baby chicks, but I've had my daughter's bannies beat up a skunk one time, chased them out of the pen. Raccoons are bad. They'll reach in with their...
Coyotes.
Yeah, coyotes too. So coyotes can be a real problem. Raccoons are probably the worst. But I secure the pens real well. I try to prevent ways for them just to easily get in. Even the tops have the same chain link that are on the sides, because I don't want any chances of anything getting out or anything getting in. And what about the two-legged predators, Frank? Those are just as bad.
I've had that happen, actually. And all my birds are fenced in, and I've got a dog in with them. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have any chickens. Plus, I got security cameras that I can actually look at on my phone. If something gets in them, they start making noise at night, I can actually go to my phone and pull up on the surveillance cameras and actually see what it is. And one thing the camera helps me with is I keep live traps out baited with eggs. Raccoons and possums, they can smell those eggs from a mile away. But an egg, it'll last before it actually blows up in hot weather. They'll last longer than cold, but they'll last forever. And the raccoons and the possums and skunks stuff, they love them. So I keep them baited up. But those cameras allow me to see if something's coming around at night. The ones I got identifies if it's a car, if it's a human, if it's an animal. It tells me before I even look at it. And that way I know what I've got around my property that's nosing around. So that way I know better how to dispose of it coming around my place. Because you've got to do skunks different than possums, different than coyotes or bobcats if you're having problems. I'm an expert on live trap, catching animals. So,
I was having a problem with coyotes. They were doing a number on me for a while there. And then Frank clued me in on those little strobe lights.
I love them.
And I started out with the red ones, but I was still having problems. Some of the predators went away, but some didn't. And then I went and got the clear ones. Basically, all my predator problems went away. Yeah. That was like a couple of years ago, I think it was. And I haven't lost to a predator since.
Kenny, explain to him what you're talking about. It's like a strobe light that just blinks as soon as the sun goes down, and it actually is on a solar. So the electricity to run it comes from the sun, from the solar.
Yeah, it's just a self-contained light. Has a solar panel on the top. It charges itself during the day. As soon as the sun goes down, the lights come on. And you look at my backyard. Frank, did you notice it when you were here? It looked like a landing strip. Like a
looks like an airport.
Airplane.
People come down, and they said, what in the world have you got up there on that hill? Is it you got an airport or something up there? All those different strokes. But what I do with mine, just one little screw in them to mount them. About once a month, every couple months, I take it off and move it. But before that, I've just used the green Christmas lights, the multicolored Christmas lights that blinked. Of course, you got to have electricity for those. And I would just move them every once in a while. And owls pretty much all the predators. Now, raccoons, possums didn't affect them as much, but the bobcats, coyotes, the smarter animals, they disappeared. They got going fast.
You told me that I needed to move those strobes every now and then. Since the day I got them, I have not moved them once. And they work.
That's good.
Yeah. I know you told me you need to change them up and move them around a little bit. Chase was saying that he talked about putting like bricks around the bottom of the pen. And my dad, when we had chickens when I was a kid, he put those white blocks, what do they call them? They're like 12
Center
inch.
block.
He would put those all the way around, halfway in the dirt, and then put the pen on top of that. And that pretty much took care of the coyotes. And I keep meaning to do that here. It's something I've always wanted to do. I just kept putting it off. But someday I do want to do that, where you line those blocks all the way around, put dog kennels, like chain link fence dog kennels, put it on top of that, put a decent roof on it, like a corrugated roof, and I should be good to go. That's what I want to do.
Makes them last longer too. The kennels like you've got, Kenny, if you set them up on top of those blocks, if that kennel is sitting down on the dirt, they'll rot out in no time, especially here where it's real damp. Not so much for out west for Kenny and Nancy, but here where we get so much rain and it gets so cold, they get water down in them. I bought a brand new one and went out and checked it there the other day, but the last cold spell we had, it got down like 15 degrees below. Water had got down in the door frame and had froze and had split it all the way down. The one pipe beside the door, it split it all the way to the ground. So it destroyed it. Yeah.
You want to protect them from the weather. So you want to keep everything dry. You want to keep it from the rain. If you have chicken houses, you want to prevent the drafts. You want to make sure you give them a mixture of shade and sun, never full sun. If it gets hot, especially with like chickens, like my black pearls, if they got direct sun, they would kill them pretty much right away. And I've seen so many people ruin chickens by having the roost too low. And this is what happened to me, was the roost was so low, the rooster would lay his tail over to prevent it from hitting the roost, and then his tail would stay there. And then I couldn't tell whether I was dealing with rye tail or not. That was an issue. And then if they're too high, a lot of times when the chickens, like roosters, when they get older, as they get older, it's like they're jumping up and down on the roost, but they're not using their wings as much to soften the blow. And so they would land harder, and then you get bumblefoot, start getting infection, gangrene, start losing them. The placement of the roost is really important, especially when you're dealing with different ages. The older they get, the lower you want to be, but you want them high enough so that they're not rubbing their tail on it.
Yeah. And you want the roost poles up high enough to where they can actually use their wings to kind of slow them down before they hit. I've seen a lot of people went to one guy's farm. Just about every one of his chickens had bumblefoot on one foot or the other, and some both. And what he done, he had the roost mid to where the chicken was just, he couldn't use his wings, so he was just jumping down. And you could hear those chickens, when they jump off the roost, you could hear that slap when it hit the ground. We lowered some of them and then raised the others up a little bit to where they could actually slow themselves down, and his bumblefoot went away. But there's one spot you don't want them in to where they're just jumping down flat on those feet. You can see the ground. It packs the ground hard where they're jumping down off the roost.
Yeah.
You guys are being too vague for me. I need numbers. 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet. How high do you need the roost when they're like a year, 2 years old? And how low do you need the roost when they're like 4 or 5 years old?
For me, depending on what you're going to use, like my roost poles are about, they're probably about 5 feet off the ground. And that seems to be good. Yeah. Now, if I've got a rooster I want to exercise a little more, then I might raise them up a little bit, but I want to make sure the litter is softer, not on hard ground. So the higher you go, the softer the litter needs to be. Yeah. That's what I would do.
Another thing I think you need to be careful of is the rocks inside your litter. Because they hit that rock and it splits their bottom of their pad open, then there you go, infection could ensue. So
any cut on the bottom of the foot, they get bacteria in it. It's a bumblefoot case every time.
So as far as the litter, you want to keep it dry. You want to keep it free of molds and fungi. So if you're keeping it dry, you shouldn't have a whole lot of problem with that. I like a deep litter. What I do is, I don't have them right now, but we used to have horses all the way around us. And they would throw their horse manure over the fence. I'd spread it out, let it dry real good, and then I would throw it in the pen. And then whenever we mowed the grass, we'd dump all the grass into the pen as well. And then they would work on that. And then I would just let the litter get to a certain height, and then I would take out half of it. Whatever was left, I'd turn it over, rake it up, put the stuff into a compost pile. But you notice I didn't say clean. twice a year, I'll go out there with a hose and I'll spray down the pens and get all the dust out and everything. But I never make the litter like super clean because I want my birds to be exposed to the microorganisms. I want them to be exposed to that. I want them to build immunity, some resistance to whatever their environment presents them. I don't want them to be fragile. I want them to be exposed to those things so they can build immunity towards them.
In other words, you don't want to run a hospital.
That's right. What was he saying, Nancy?
Chase has a cure for you. I can bring you a fresh 10x6 load dump trailer full of horse poo.
Man, I'd like to have that.
If you want it.
Here's the thing. Don't get me wrong. Horse manure is, to me, the very best litter that you can get. But here's the downfall of it. You have to have it where it is absolutely dry to where no water can get on it. Because water gets on that horse manure, you talk about a smelly, nasty mess for your birds. It's terrible. But in a good dry facility, it's the best litter that you can get, hands down.
I was going to write an article one time. It was called Horse Poop in the Chicken Coop, how to use horse poop properly and with the benefits of it. Because I was against it for a long time, but Tony kind of sold me on it because all the old horse racers raise gamecocks. And horses and chickens get along really well with each other. They live symbiotic. The chickens keep the horse manure loose so it doesn't get packed on the ground and build up. And the horses, they're terrible at digesting their food, so they're always passing things that the chickens like. So they really do work good with each other. Now, the only thing I would say is, and I was fairly secure about the ones that were around me, but I am leery about bringing horse manure where I can't see the horses because I don't know how healthy the horses are. I'm not going to bring bad litter on my yard, so I'm usually skeptical of that these days. If they had the horses here, I got to look how they're taken care of. I understood the owner, the horses look healthy, then I would do it.
I've got a question here on roosts before we continue on. Aren't roosts related to room? Like 5 feet off the ground, you need 5 feet in front.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
You got to go off your cage. You got to put that roost in a position to where it's either down on the ground to where they're not going to damage their feet, or if you can't get it high enough for them, they're just dropping down, you need to put it low enough that it's not going to hurt them when they do jump off of it. You got to work for whatever cages. You got those little 39 by 39s. I've got those set lower just where the bird can get under it. And with the litter, he's not hurting himself when they jump down on that litter. The litter is what really helps you as far as to pad their foot, though. If you got the litter deep in there, they can handle just about any size roost. But like Kenny said, though, there's a comfortable medium there. They need to slow themselves down before they get where they're going, or they just walk off the roost. So you need to either have it low or mid-level to where they're not going to hurt their feet when they jump down.
But they have to be off the ground. I have some round pens out there I use as temporary pens. And if you notice, the roost that's in there is only 6 inches off the ground, just enough to keep them off the ground so they can sleep at night without being on the ground. So I do that, and then I move them around. I wonder if that's what he's talking about.
I took it as far as the pen size, you'd have to adjust the roost to the pen size, what I got from it.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Here's one, Frank, that we see a lot is nobody ever has enough pens. They're always short of pens.
Raise as many as you can manage and afford.
But you're always short some pens. You always have just enough birds where you need 1 or 2 more pens.
Here's the thing. That's true when you're first starting to get your family formed and you're wanting the very best to start with. After you get so far in the Founders Program, you're not having to breed as many to find those standouts because there's a time that you get them to where you're getting very few culls. So that number goes down the more you get them where they need to be. But it is a necessity to raise as many as you can. I know that sounds, but I had a guy ask me that, and he goes, if you're doing that out every year, you're killing a lot of chickens. If you listen to us, we're saying in the beginning, you don't do that all the way through. There's a certain point where you get to where all your birds should be looking good, and then you're not having to do that.
I agree with that. The better the birds get, the less you have to hatch. It's easier to get the selection you need, but especially in the beginning. Hatching a lot of chicks just gives you the power selection. Without having a lot of chicks, it's all about the numbers. I say it all the time. I had a number of breeds out there, and I was lucky if I hatched 1 or 2 clutches each breed. I just wasn't getting the selection I needed to improve them, okay, which made me have to breed to a lot more of them than I should have. So if you have a good selection, you can cull really hard without feeling like you're culling all of them. Get them down to the top 10%. You're pulling out the standouts. Those are the ones going to improve your strain. So you can imagine, even from the top 10%, you have 100 birds, that only leaves you 10. But all you really need is one cock and one hen from the standouts to move forward with. So the numbers do work. But when you're only hatching a dozen chicks, maybe 2 dozen tops, the numbers aren't there. You're just not going to get the selection you need to improve your strain. It's not going to happen.
You could win the lottery and get lucky and get a stag and a hen that would mature into what you're looking for. But that's very far and few. I have done it and got some really good looking birds out of several birds in the beginning, but that's like winning the lottery.
When you have such low numbers, what happens a lot of times is you have some that have these traits that look really good. Then you have some over here that has these traits you have good. Yeah. But you don't really have one bird or 2 birds that have all the traits. Like Frank says, like hitting the lottery, the chances of you getting the bird you need to really move forward, let's say it does have everything you need. Overall, it's a pretty good bird. But if you would hatch more, you would have had more that were pretty good, but might have been just a little bit higher standard, which would have made all the difference. So Frank's right. In the beginning, hatch as many as you can manage and afford so you have the proper selection. Once the strain is into the foundation stage and you're getting the uniformity and the consistency and the repeatability, and you're not getting a lot of surprises and culling is down to a minimum, then you could probably get away with not hatching as many.
Yeah, because even if you get the strain to where you want them, the more you put on the ground, the better selection you got. And maybe you find one that, oh, this bird's got everything that I want. But then if you'd have hatched maybe another 20, you'd have got one that would have made that one look bad, pretty much. I say it all the time, it's like playing the lottery. The more chances you got, the better chance of winning. It's the same way when you're raising birds. The more you put on the ground, the better selection you have and a better chance of getting that bird. It's going to take your strain on to the next method.
Just don't overcrowd. Because if you're raising a lot of birds and they don't have the proper space and they're just making each other sick, you're not going to achieve anything that way either. People always want me to give them numbers, and that's the best I could do. How many you can manage and how many you can afford.
That's another scenario. When they start packing them in and getting overpopulated and you're getting too much, Mother Nature has this way to cull them down. If you're not culling, Mother Nature will do it for you, because I've seen a lot of breeders overcrowd their farms to the point to where they was in milk crates and everything. And then next thing, some disease would break out and cull it for them. If you're overpopulating, you've got a greater chance of getting something in your birds that you don't want.
What is he saying, Nancy?
How do you hatch more than 1 or 2 clutches of eggs if a hen only lays 10 to 12 eggs before going broody?
Okay, first of all, there's a number of ways. All her eggs can go right into an incubator. You can get foster hens to hatch whatever eggs and then have her hatch at the end. Now, chickens are going crazy out there. Talk about chickens. Do you hear that? I don't know what's going on out there. Okay.
I've been hearing
crows. So I don't know.
Yeah, it must be something out there. So there's a number of ways to get your numbers up, and your more important hens, you're going to try to get more eggs from your more important hens, especially if you're dealing with a breeding program.
Really, the point is not to let them get to the point to where they are broody. Take their eggs each day, and that way they won't ever go broody on you. But now you leave the eggs in with her, she'll go broody, and then she'll slack off maybe a week or so. Once you break her up, you won't get any eggs. But just keep taking the eggs out, Kenny was talking about. Just keep removing the eggs. That way you got no chance of her going broody on you. And you're not going to get an egg every day, but you can get one at least every other day.
And pullets, I won't breed to a pullet, but I'll use them for foster hens.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now. Rather than use my incubators, I had pullets that's going broody. Me and Amanda's just been taking the eggs away from them, mark them real good so we know what it is, put them in there, and I've got it where I can lock them up, keep feeding water in there. That way I don't have other hens coming in and taking a chance of laying an egg when she was off. I do keep them controlled that way to where nothing can get to the nest to lay in it.
The question I have is, how many days can you store the eggs before you put them in the incubator or have the hen go broody and put them underneath her?
Don't do no more than 15, but I set all mine at 10 days. I don't go over 10 days myself. That way, if they're fertile, I'm going to get a good hatch out of those eggs just by the age of them. But I wouldn't go over 15 days myself. How about you, Kenny?
Yeah, especially in this scenario where you want to keep all the eggs from one hen under another hen. You don't want to mix them up. As soon as you get 10 or 12, get them under a hen, and you should be fine. If you're storing them properly and you're turning the eggs as they're being stored, you shouldn't have a problem. There's hens that wait 3 weeks before they start sitting. So it's all about how they're stored, because the hen will go in there and before she lays the next egg, she goes in there and shakes them up pretty good. And you pretty much got to simulate what the hen does. But you do want to keep the eggs together from any particular hen. You want to keep those eggs together.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. How do you store them? Say, Frank, because you have a lot more weather than we do here out in California. How do you store your eggs if you can't get them under a hen right away?
I've got a refrigerator and I keep it set on 57 degrees. Those little mini refrigerators. And what I done, I went to Tractor Supply and they've got these little cheap 20 count cheap incubator turners that you can buy separately. And I've got racks in there and I've got them set up on it. Now, this one, it turns them 6 times a day. Kenny was talking about, that is the life of your eggs. Do not store them upside down, pointy end down always, or on their side. Never turn the pointed end up because you kill your airhead. You never want to turn them point up. I see a lot of people doing that, turn them. And that's the wrong way to do it. When you turn them, it's side. And what I like to do is when I mark my eggs, if I'm not doing it without the turners I got just by hand, you make a mark on the egg that way where it's turned each time. You don't get mixed up and let it lay there a couple of days on one side.
And where do you mark it on the egg? Top, side? Where do you? That doesn't matter. And what do you mark it with? A pencil or a pen or a Sharpie?
I never use the pencil because of the lead, which a lot of pencils, they don't use lead anymore. I've heard people say, oh, never use a Sharpie. It will ruin your eggs. I've never had a problem with a Sharpie, ever. I don't think I'd use a permanent marker, one of those that's got the real high smell to them. But a Sharpie, that's all I've ever used, really, in probably the past 20 years, been a Sharpie.
Yeah, it's funny. If you read some of the old, not the old books, but the newer modern chicken books, they say either use a grease pen or a pencil. I tried all that. It didn't matter. I used the Sharpie. I never had a problem with it. Yeah.
They said the dye would go in through the shell and to the embryo. And I use a Sharpie. Very seldom will I get under a 95% hatch rate out of my eggs. And that's under a hen or in an incubator.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with it.
I don't think they even make grease pencils anymore. I haven't seen those things in years.
Kenny mentioned that. I got some at a Hobby Lobby.
I think they're
in West Virginia back several years ago, and that's the last ones I've ever come across.
Okay, practice good biosecurity. Keep a closed yard, Frank. A lot of people don't want to do that.
And I understand it too. I really do, because I used to be that person. You'd see this bird that you just had to have, and you get him, take him home. And then long about 2 months, get this disease on your yard that you've never seen before. And then you start adding 2 plus 2 and see what it's done. Now, it took me a long time to grasp what was causing it. And I was one of the very worst from it. I'd bring chickens back, other people's chickens from different farms, and they never got a chance to get resistance to the disease because I kept bringing birds in with different diseases that would infect the others. So it was just like a downhill run because I wasn't giving them a chance to even get used to the diseases that they had rather than getting diseases I'm just bringing in there left and right. It's easily done. I think every one of us has done it in the past, but it's so important for the health of your birds. So important.
Yeah, I get it too. It's funner when you can share it, when you can bring people over, when you go to other people's farms. So I understand the angst. But it's like Frank said, especially once you have a family for a while, you've been working on them, you got a lot of money and time in them, you get to the point when you start making progress, do you really want to take that chance? So you have to really think about it. I would limit visitors. I would limit new birds. Once you have a family, especially when you get into the Founders Program, you're into the foundation stage, you're not going to be adding new blood. Once you get them to a certain point, you're not going to be adding new bloods. It shouldn't even be an issue. Try to limit wild birds, wild animals, rats, as much as possible. And when you do bring in birds or you take birds off your farm, bring them back, then quarantine them. I have a 30-30-30 rule that I do. You put them by themselves for about 30 days, see if they start showing any disease. If they seem good, put a sacrificial bird with them for another 30 days and see if that bird either shows signs of disease or your bird gives them something. And then try to keep them a good distance. I just say 30 feet away from the other chickens and then feed them last every day. And just make sure. And if you see nothing after that, then they should be fine.
That's something I had to break my dad with because he was constantly bringing birds home, new birds. And finally, I got it through to him enough to where He's stuck with it now. He's not brought birds home in many years. But this is how I see it. There's disease on every yard. If you went in there and you check for pathogens, you're going to find disease on every yard. Every yard's got it. Every chicken yard is packing some sort of diseases. But if you keep a closed yard like Kenny was talking about, they grow in numbers to the ones that's finally resistant to all those diseases to where you get to where your birds are not sick anymore. But if you keep introducing different strains of disease, it could be the same disease, but different strain of that disease back into your flock, you're never going to get nowhere. It's a downhill battle, really.
We need to cover epigenetics again.
That's one I can't wait to do because it's so important. It's so important.
Did we do a master's class video on epigenetics?
We discussed it a little bit. We remade the discussion that we had in my kitchen, if you'll remember. But it wasn't nothing like the original was. But we did discuss it, but we wanted to redo it after that because there was so much we could add to it.
Yeah, I want to do that again if we haven't done it and go into the genetic factors and how that all works. It's not just the environment. It's what's going on inside the bird too. And I don't want to go into it right now because it's a pretty good discussion. It's a pretty big one. But once you understand how epigenetics works, how the genetic factors work, how they're turning on and off genes depending on the environment and how it's stimulated, how they work like knobs and some work like switches, and why some genes, they're expressed in one area but not in another, where a breeder could have his birds for 30, 40, 50 years, never see a particular trait, put them on another yard in a different environment, and all of a sudden that trait's expressed. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Yeah, we need to cover that. That'd be a really good one to cover. The only problem is it's such good information, chances are it end up being another master's class video. To tell you the truth.
It would definitely would be.
Yeah, it would have to be the more I think about it.
For the front end.
You want to know my biggest disappointment with biosecurity is that I can't have those little wild bird feeders all around my backyard where I can see them from my kitchen window as I'm doing dishes or whatever. Or I can't put the wild bird seed in the front yard so my cat can look out the window and talk to him, because you have to have good biosecurity. You have to keep the wild birds away from your yard as possible, because there's some really heavy diseases that those guys can carry.
I had one little robin that we saved. My pet snake got into the nest and killed two of his siblings, and it was only one left, and Amanda, being a soft heart she was, this made by the third one, and everybody's, "You using a wild bird for a pet and you with chickens?" And I said, "Yeah, but you got to think about it. This bird was on my chicken yard." So the damage had already been done anyway, and now it's at the house. It's not even at the chicken yard. But it's almost virtually impossible to keep all of them out. But I tell you, I put up a flag, and the whip of that flag when the wind blows keeps a lot of them away. The chickens had a hard time with it when I first put it up, but the wild birds, I see less wild birds on my place, and there'll be some there, and that wind will come up and that flag will start blowing. Man, they're gone. They don't waste no time to leave. They don't. But now, it took the chickens a long time to get used to that thing, though.
Probably making noise all the time.
Oh, yeah, because every time it would crack and blow, they would hunker down, look and see what it was going on. Yeah.
It's the same thing with mowing the lawn. When I would first mow the lawn, not real close to the chicken pens, but kind of around them, they would freak out. And then after they realized that I was kicking grass into their pens, they got all excited when that lawnmower was going, because they knew they were going to get some fresh grass out of it. So yeah, they're so smart. They learn. They get with the program pretty quickly.
Amanda, as soon as she walks in the fenced-in area, the hens I've got running out in there, and some of them's older hens, they recognize her, and they go to one spot on top of a pen or wherever she normally feeds them. She doesn't have to get them there. They're there waiting on her by the cup. They're running free. So each one of them knows where she's going to feed them at. So they're very intelligent birds. Scientists has done work with them and teach them to do tricks just like a dog. So they've got a very high IQ, and most of that is survival and reproductive, but they can be trained to do almost anything.
Keeping your strain healthy, crucial for their well-being and reproduction. So if you can't keep them healthy, you're not going to be able to create the strain, maintain the strain, or even improve the strain. Frank, prevention, that's where you got to start.
That's 100% true too, Kenny, because at one time we had, the rain a few years here. It was awful. And there was this big, huge field. You know the big field that I showed you on the left side of where I've got my chickens on the hill there? That would hold water. If we had one big rain shower, that thing would hold water in that field for weeks. And I kept having problems with pox. I was cleaning the water up, no standing water, and the creek that's there beside of me, it constantly runs. So no mosquitoes are going to be able to hatch larvae in it because it's a running stream. Well, we walked out in that field and I seen what my problem was. So we started spraying that field. And what I was doing at that time, I was having a huge problem with pox. And I would vaccinate my parent stock, my brood fowl. So the chicks would be vaccinated through the eggs. And that would work up about 4 or 5 years. And then I'd start seeing a couple more. But once I started spraying that field and doing my part as far as husbandry, I haven't vaccinated in over 12 years now. And used to, I have to do that. Just shows you how far you can get by just making sure things are done the way they're supposed to be. And now I don't have to rely on that vaccine. Now, I did have 2 or 3 young stags have dry pox. I think it was last year. But in a week's time, you couldn't even tell anything was wrong with it. They just went on about their merry way and didn't have any problem with it. But I think a lot of things people vaccinate for could be taken care of before they had to resort to that. I really do.
Or back to biosecurity and keeping people off your yard and staying off other people's yards and bringing in new birds and all that. I haven't vaccinated or medicated since Tony threw everything in the trash can. And yeah, I took a hit for a little while, but then they got better. And we're going to be teaching that pretty soon in a master's class video on building up resistance to disease and keeping your fowl healthy by improving the disease resistance. But one of the things I encourage people to do is to handle and check your birds often. Pick them up, try to pick them up at least once a month if possible. So I try to pick up a certain amount of birds every day. So I'm looking over for parasites. I'm checking their weight to see if they either lost weight or gained weight, or see if they're too heavy or too light. Looking for defects while I have them in the hand, any disease that might pop up. And I'm culling things as I run into them. Okay. But being able to check your birds often, keeping an eye on things is so important because they can go awry pretty quickly, or you could spend a little time not checking a bird and all of a sudden you pick them up a month later or more, and all of a sudden the bird isn't what you thought it was, or all of a sudden it's sick and you didn't notice it, or it lost a lot of weight. Those kind of things sneak up on you.
Fast. And that is an awesome question.
I've never thought about this before, but Kenny, what do you think about this? Would it be a good idea to burn the feed bags right away when you get home and dump the feed in plastic containers to try to minimize any cross-contamination?
I pour all my feed into metal trash cans. I only buy enough feed that the metal cans can handle. And then as I empty them, I put them outside my shed. And then I get new feed, put them back in the shed, fill them up, and then I mix my feed every day. I don't burn the bags, but I do throw them in the trash can.
I do the same thing. My bags never go around my chickens. I've got one place where I do my feed. I take the bags, we roll them up, throw them in the trash, get rid of them, but they never go on my farm, ever. You guys have seen the videos, the cat litter totes that I use. They go back and forth. They go to that farm, to my feed house, and the bags are never even in the same room with them. That's the same thing I was going to mention, too, on the egg cartons. Remember the discussion with Dr. Gallardo? Guys, he said not to use those store-bought containers because of disease. I'll be the first to admit I used to use them until he put that ideal in my head, and I quit using them. I do not use them anymore.
Vertical diseases like bronchitis, you could be bringing that home with you and not even know it. It's not going to affect us, but when you put the eggs on them and store them that way, then they could be an issue. You're right. Susie told me that. I stopped storing all those things. He was talking about putting the eggs in the carton and just turn the carton every day, numerous times a day. That's the way I would do it too. But if I were him, I wouldn't use the cartons from the store like we were talking about. Buy some plastic things that you can wash, plastic egg trays, and then turn those. And then when you're done, wash them. That's what I would do.
Back when I was using those, I had a closet rod, the wooden rods, and it had a flat bottom on it. And what I would do each day, I would put one of those under one end of the carton, and then I would take out and put it on the other end of the carton that way. But I never would flip them.
Just tilt them 45 degrees both ways.
That's what I'm saying. That cork underneath it would elevate it just enough, it would turn them, and then I'd place it on the other side. But I used those things religiously until Dr. Lardo brought it up. I would not use those because they're not sanitized. The eggs, they could still have diseases on them, and I was like, they're gone.
That was a big revelation for me when he told me that. I was like, whoa, I saved all kinds of those. And I used to ship my eggs in those cartons. I used to wrap each egg in like toilet paper Okay. Put them in the egg carton, and then I would wrap the carton with tin foil, and then I'd bubble wrap the carton, and then I'd place it in the box, and then I'd put bubble wrap around that, and I never had a broken egg. And I always had a pretty good hatch rate.
Yeah. And then you started buying your own egg cartons. So that was okay.
Yeah,
After
I did.
a while,
Actually, I
you
did.
did that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still have some out there.
They're
Yes.
cheap.
They're
You
not
can-
that expensive.
on Amazon or eBay, any of those places right there, and get like a dozen for $1.50, $1.75, something like
Yeah.
that. They're not very
I
expensive
saw them
at
at
all.
Tractor Supply. They'd sell egg cartons. But I would buy a big box. The box would be like 2 feet tall and just filled with those things. So I still have boxes in the shed. I just don't sell eggs anymore. I don't have time for that.
I think everybody uses those store-bought egg cartons, and I'd used them for, 30 years. But when he said that, it was just like a light bulb went off the top of my head. I was like, oh, I'm done with that.
Let me ask you this. If you're in a bind and that's all you have is a store-bought egg carton, what if you lined it with tin foil? Would that keep it
No, I wouldn't
clean?
even take the chance, Nancy.
Okay.
No.
So don't do it at all.
No,
Okay.
because vertical diseases like bronchitis and MG, once you get that on your yard, you ain't going to get that off, or it's going to be tough to get it off.
And if you're going to get it, it's going to be from one of those houses you're going to get it at, usually.
Okay.
Some of them take very good care, just as much as we do with theirs. But some of them is a little bit less careless, and that's what gets you in trouble.
This is an interesting comment. Jason is saying, be careful with commercial compost. It may have various types of manure as part of the mixture. So if you've got a garden and you need compost for your garden and your chickens are able to get into that garden, so that's something to think about there.
Frank, nutrition, really important for keeping healthy fowl.
We'll go back on the epigenetics. That's one part of that stool. And a lot of people has it in their head. They misconstrue nutrition, Kenny. They think they can take a bird that has all the wrong proportions. He's everything that we breed away from. And they think they can give him a good nutritional diet, and he's just going to grow into the right type conformation, a big, beautiful full tail, and it's going to make everything right. But it doesn't. You have to have the genetics. Nutrition can only expose the traits we breed for to its full potential if we've got the best nutrition possible.
Right.
But they still have to have the genetics. I know you've seen it a million times. People screaming and hollering that they could take a bunch of what we call dung hills and feed them the right type feed and the right nutrition and make superstars out of them. And that's not true.
No, the three-legged stool we talk about is a perfect analogy of what you should be doing. It's your farm management and the environment they live in. It's the nutrition and the diseases that are in your area. These all play a role. And then it's the genetics and the genes that they pass from offspring from generation to generation. They all play a role in how you manage them, how you feed them, take care of them, how you manage diseases, how you select them. The birds you select from generation to generation, whether you're selecting for good health, birds that can live in their environment, birds that have the right traits, all that. It all plays a role in nutrition's. We want to say it's one leg, but it's only part of one leg when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. But without good nutrition, it makes selection that much harder. Because if the birds is not showing their true potential, then we might be skipping over birds that we would have normally selected to breed. And once again, you mentioned it. Good nutrition, good health. You take the strongest of birds, if it doesn't have the correct nutrition, it's going to have health problems in some way or deficiencies, so to speak. The better we feed our birds, the better their nutrition is, the better chances of us getting those standouts that we always praise to further our strain to go forward with.
The one thing I'd say, the biggest thing about nutrition for me is making sure they have a complete feed. Now, I see so many people, they only feed game caught feeds. That's not a nutritious diet, okay? That has some things that they need, but it's not complete. And so if you look at like the Maximus mix on the website, I would say 60% of it is pellet. And I prefer the all-flock pellet because I think it's one of the best pellets on the market. It's the closest to organic that you're going to get, very natural. You just can't store a lot of it. And then use some of the grains. I don't think a lot of grains are important, but I do think they need to be some. I think some people overdo it with wheat. I think oats are bad. I'm just not an oat person. I see more problems with oats than it's worth. I talked to a number of nutritionists, and they all told me the same thing. And one told me it for a while till he saw everybody else using it and he changed his game. But they told me oats are for horses. Keep them away from chickens. They're high fiber, low protein. He says there's not much in oats to benefit from the chicken. You get the fiber from other things. So I've never used oats. I don't soak them. I don't use them. I don't think they're needed in the chicken feed. But just making sure you have a complete feed. I think that's the most important part.
The pellet is where people get misconstrued. Now, if I use 60% pellets in my mix like Kenny does with his, and yours are 20%, right, Kenny? 20% off what? If I used 60%, I'd burn mine up. They would be so fat and so much protein. I only use like 14 pound and 50, but mine's a 36% mineral pellet. So I don't have to use as much as Kenny would do. So it really depends on your pellet and how much ratio that you use. And Mark's 100% right. Everyone prays to the protein gods and gamefowl. And they think as long as it's got a high protein, it's the greatest feed ever was, which in reality, that's further from the truth. Your lysine, your methionine, your threonine. There's so much of your trace minerals and your fatty acids that play a role in that. There's much more to feed than just protein. Mark's on the money on that.
I do try to aim for about an 18% protein.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I do 18 and a half. Now, in the summertime, when it's getting close to the moat, I will lower it down to about 16% because it's really hot here. But it really depends on what your area is, your climate, your environment, where you live at. That plays so much bigger role as far as what you need to feed your chickens and what percentage of protein or the mix during the winter compared to the spring and summer and so forth.
If you pick up your chickens all the time, you're checking them out and observing them, it's going to tell you a lot about what their diet should be like. So if you're picking them up and they're too light, you need to change the diet. If they're too heavy, you need to change the diet. If they're active and healthy, then you're probably right where you need to be. If you're noticing a strong odor or a lot of urates in the droppings, then you got to adjust the feed. So you need to pay attention to your birds and their environment so that you can make the proper adjustments. Will you need to adjust it in different seasons? Sometimes. I'll adjust it a little bit in the summer. I'll up the protein just a little bit, drop the carbohydrates, get them into the winter, raise some of the carbohydrates so that they have a little bit more to keep them warm. And the last thing I do, which I've heard, is drop the protein during the molt. To me, that's the worst thing you could do.
It may have its benefits in the domestic chicken world. Here's how I look at it. Once you take the breast off of a game bird, he's never going to get all that back to 100%. He'll get it back, but he'll never get it all back. It can't be replaced. And I'm just not up for that. That's a no to me when it comes to my birds. I will never, ever do that. Force molts, my birds molt when they want to molt. And I leave it up to Mother Nature to take care of that.
The only thing I want to talk about, because I get this question a lot, is what do I think about supplements? If you have a complete feed, you got the feed where you need it, and you've done a good job balancing the feed, you don't need supplements. Supplements are for when you have a feed that's deficient. And if it's deficient, use the supplements until you get the feed right and then stop the supplements. I just don't think supplements should be an everyday thing. It's used for a particular reason, for a particular length of time, and then you stop it. So that's how I feel about it.
I see a lot of people harm their birds, the kidneys, their organs, burn the feathers out of them. If you are going to use it and they say use a pound in your mix, go with about a quarter of a pound. Don't use the recommended dose. And don't use it on all your chickens. Try it on one chicken, two chickens. See how it reacts with them before you use it on the rest of your birds. Because I promise you, when I started this feed thing, doing different types of feeds, I was doing it on just a couple chickens, just seeing how it would do. And I'm so glad I did, because some of them, I messed them completely. I'm not going to lie. I messed them completely up trying to get all the minerals, trace minerals, and everything right. So it's something you have to do and tweak at very small intervals, no big jumps. And don't try it on your whole flock. Just use some tests. Take the worst birds that you've got, test it on them, see how it does. If it does all right, then put it in the rest of your flock.
I think if the feed is where it should be, and you think you're going to add supplement to enhance the feed from there, I think you're going down the wrong road. Maybe you have a winter feed. Maybe you have a summer feed. Maybe you have a breeding feed. That's fine. And then you switch them over gradually every time you got to do that. But they shouldn't be so far apart that you're basically feeding them a whole complete different feed every time you do it. The feed should be close with some small adjustments, But I just don't think supplements, for the most part, is the way to go.
I think a lot of it too, Kenny, people misconstrue the power of a feed cup, even if it's your hand. If all your birds is pretty much good weight and you come up on a bird and he's a little bit under what he should be, increase his feed. If he's a little bit too fat or she's a little bit too fat, take some of the feed back. I go around once a week and I'll pick them up, fill them over, see if I need to decrease the feed, improve the feed. When Amanda first started feeding the chickens, helped me with the chickens, that's one thing I had to learn her, basically, was fill the chickens once a week, and they'll let you know. They'll tell you if you need to up the feed or lower the feed. What's good for one strain, just like with Kenny's chickens, what good for amount for one strain won't be enough or maybe too much for another.
We are a breeding show. So the last part's going to be about breeding towards good health.
Okay, can I say something before you go on to another subject?
Wait. Are you part of the show?
I don't think so today.
You know why? Because I'm trying to go really fast, because I just want to say this. I knew this show was going to be promotional heavy in the beginning because there's so much I wanted to announce. So I am giving them a little more than I normally would, the actual content, but I am rushing through it because we want to get to the back end. So go.
Seriously? Okay.
Okay, too late. Okay.
No. Shut up.
Okay.
I want to ask a couple questions here. Can too much protein damage the kidneys?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. That didn't get answered. That was on the
It
one
can
that was on
it can harm the liver, it can harm the kidneys, and your birds should drink twice the water as feed. So if they're drinking more water than that, then you know something's wrong. If you go out and you've got gallon water things in a day and a half that's completely gone, then you better be checking your protein. But there's some people that admit to feeding up to 36% protein to their birds every day, all through the year. Because you feed too much protein, it will even dry the feathers up. The feathers will curl right up on their back, just like sun damage. Have you ever seen that before, Kenny?
Yeah.
Too much protein? That's what we call burning the feathers out of them. It will literally dry the feathers out, and the feathers will just curl up. If a bird's in the sun for a long period of time, it will do the same thing. And too much protein will do the same thing. Just make the feathers fall right out because it'll go moat.
There's signs to it, though. It's not a surprise. You just got to understand the signs. Frank just listed a few of them there. Okay. Like I said earlier, if you walk into your pen and it's got that strong ammonia odor, that's a good sign of the protein being too high. You see the droppings are really heavy in white urates. That's another sign. If they're lifting their legs, doing the high stepping thing, that's another sign. You'll see it. The birds will tell you what you need to know about the adjustments you need to make to the feed. And protein's a big one. So
a lot of it, you can watch the feathers. And I can usually just walk to somebody's house. I can look at the plumage, how healthy the plumage is, and I can give you an idea of what that bird feels like in flesh. You can see the health usually in the feathers itself. If the feathers are in good shape, usually the body's where it needs to be. But if you see the dry feathers, the feathers look real bad, usually the body's not going to feel good.
Would you say that the same thing for the comb and wattles if they still have their comb and wattles?
Yeah.
Would that be a good base? Okay.
That's a very good base because you want them red, nice strawberry red heads, puffy under the eyes, a nice bright clear eye. There's a lot of things that you can just observe and look at. And Kenny mentioned a while ago, a lot of times your birds will signal to what they need or don't need.
And JS is talking about using cow manure for chickens. I myself don't like it. I like the drier horse manure.
It's tougher.
Yeah. I don't think cows and chickens mix real well. I wouldn't do that.
We've got cattle, and I've tried it, put a tarp over it and kind of let it dry out and try to take a shovel and chop it up. But now, I mentioned a while ago about the horse manure getting wet. Times that about 10 with cow manure, okay? And the smell, we don't even want to go there. So stick with the horse manure. The cow manure, I would not advise. I'm like Kenny on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Keep it for your compost pile, for your gardens.
That's what we do.
So let's talk a little bit about the breeding towards keeping healthy fowl. Tawny, I don't know why I said her name. I'm with Tawny too much. I'll call Nancy Tawny all the time too. Anyways.
What does that say about me?
I don't know. I wasn't even thinking about her and that just came right out. So watch, I say her name 3 times, she's going to come through the door.
Oh, Lord.
Selecting breeders that are healthy. That's a big one, Frank, is selecting the healthy birds, culling the sick, only breeding to the healthy birds. That goes a long way.
and I'm not going to say what it is. I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off right now. But we was back on the members show last week, and I was talking about breeding sick to sick. And man, you come up with the best scenario on that ever was about sick, non-sick. Remember what I was talking about?
No.
I'll remind you when we get over on the other side. I mean, I'd always thought that way before. And can you get out from underneath breeding sick chickens, starting with sick chickens?
Getting behind on genetics? Was that it?
I can't say. I've been giving out too much. But when you breed sick to sick, the closer you breed, you're magnifying that trait.
Yeah.
And we always say it. What's the worst trait not to breed for? And that's sickness. So, and a lot of people doesn't look at it that way. They're like, oh, these are sick, but the offspring won't be sick. They think it's just going to go away on its own. But we know it doesn't.
If you have a sick bird, it's the only bird you have. You got to do what you got to do. But like Frank said, the last thing you want to do is breed that sick bird to another sick bird. So you breed that bird to a bird that's healthy. And then you keep selecting the offspring after they're healthy, getting rid of the sick. That's how you breed a family that's resistant to disease, has the right immunity to the diseases in their environment. We say it all the time. You can't become immune or resistant to a disease you've never been exposed to. So anytime you bring a new disease, you need to work your way through it. And it's breeding to the healthy birds, getting rid of the sick birds is going to get you there. If you keep breeding to the sick birds, you're just going in the wrong direction. We're always looking to breed in a certain direction, and that's towards improvement. When you breed in the wrong direction, you're not going to work your way through anything. You're just going to keep making them worse and worse. Was that what you were going to say and not say?
Pretty much.
Out of the bag
But
now.
I disconnected it from the Founders
I was just being
program.
careful. I was going to add one more thing to that, but that was it pretty much.
Just don't
in
talk
a
about the
nutshell.
Founders program. We're good, you know?
Yeah. That was the other part with it that was in the Founders program. But yeah, that's the reason we always tell people when they're starting out, they're going to start their own string, is to make sure that those birds are healthy, because a lot of things we can work past, Kenny, just like with the Founders program you mentioned a while ago. There's always that trick to get around certain scenarios. And a lot of the breeding we can get around. But sickness, we can get around it. But who wants to put that much time in them and spend that much emphasis in them to say that they won't even make it that far with sick birds?
The biggest thing, too, is even when you have sick birds, and I know when you first get birds and they're sick, a lot of these big name breeders, a lot of these popular breeders, they rely on medication so much that you almost can't get away from it when you're starting out. You almost have to medicate them the way they're medicating them just to keep them alive till you get offspring and work through it. But medications, if you just keep using medications forever, you're just hiding the sickness. You're hiding the weakness. You're hiding the fault. You will not know how good your birds are or how healthy they are until you get away from the medications. Then you're going to find out what you really have. To me, that's not breeding. You're breeding towards a high quality bird. You're breeding towards good traits. This is all genetics, by the way. You're breeding towards good health. But if you're using things to hide those weaknesses and you're not exposing them and selecting accordingly, you're never improving them. So that's the way I feel about it.
Well, a lot of people think, say, Marek's or pox or what have you, they say, oh, I vaccinate for that. My chickens are not sick with that anymore. I haven't seen pox or Marek's here in years. But little did they know, just because that bird's vaccinated, it's not showing any symptoms of that disease. It can still shed that bacteria and infect non-infected birds that's never been exposed to it before. And a lot of people have no idea about that. And they think it's okay to sell them to other people when they are vaccinating for something. Now, we've got vaccines out there right now that is a non-virus vaccine that just makes antibodies better in the chicken's body. Now, I think that's the best route to go if you're going to have the vaccine. But using live virus vaccines, there's a little bit more to it than your chicken not being sick. Just like when I was vaccinating for pox. If somebody had took one of my birds home, it could have infected their birds with pox.
Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. We're going to go into the back end for our members. So if you want to join us, just join the Breeders' Academy. Go to www.breedersacademy.com. There you're going to get the round table, the members round table, and you're going to be able to watch the entire show. You'll also be able to watch the Masters Class video series, have access to the Founders Program, all the programs and courses to support the Founders Program, all the daily articles, and a whole bunch more. Also, make sure you join our newsletter. Go to www.breedersacademy.com. There you're going to get free tips on breeding, free articles on breeding, free ebooks on breeding, and lost my place. My mouse fell out of my hand. Okay.
Serves you right.
I totally.
I thought he said his mouth fell out of his hand there for a minute.
The mouse fell out of my hand, and then all of a sudden I grabbed it, and it was upside down, and everything was going all over the place.
Well, let's see if you do a better job than I do. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, whatever. We went way longer than we should have. Frank, thank you for joining me. Nancy, thank you for joining me.
Buddy.
We'll see you guys
Absolutely.
later. Members, meet us in the back end. See ya.
Bye.
Hey, guys.
This show is brought to you by the
Sorry, I messed that up.
Take 2.
Yeah, here we go. This is it. I'm sure of it this time. Okay, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you again for joining us on the Bred to Perfection podcast show. This show was brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where by becoming a member, you can increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and take you and your fowl to the next level.
We can also show you how to create a strain from hybrid crosses or mongrel flocks, and help you to create, maintain, and improve your present strains. We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel anytime.
To join us at the Breeders Academy membership website, go to www.breedersacademy.com.
Best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
While you're checking out the Breeders Academy, make sure to sign up for our newsletter, The Breeders Bulletin. We provide a lot of free bonus materials and some great information that will take you and your fowl to the next level. Well, that's it for now.
We hope you join us next time for another episode of Bred to Perfection. We'll see you later.
Bye.